So we have about close to 12 minutes before the market opens. One of the first few things we want to make sure that we're looking at is the larger time frames. Okay, so we're gonna stay on this big screen so that we can watch the time frames. So I could kind of go through each one. All right. So the first one I'm gonna look at is the 15 minute. What we want to make sure we're looking at is the 50 EMA. Okay. So if you don't currently have the 50 EMA, make sure when you get to Thinkorswim, you click on Edit Studies, and then what you would do here, you would type in Move F, and then use exponential. Okay. Once you get there, you're gonna hit the gear and then type in 50. That would signify your 50-day exponential moving average. Okay, and then you would hit OK, and then hit OK. So I'm gonna go ahead and now, so here's some pivotal things we want to make sure we are aware of. When we are trading and we're looking at choosing between calls or puts, we want to make sure that we are typically trading calls when we're above the 50 and trading puts when we're below the 50. Okay. So the 50 EMA right now is currently the line in purple. I'm going to try to make it a little bit more bolder so we can see it. So if we see candlesticks above this purple line, we're typically going to look for entry for calls, okay? As we can see, once we crossed over above this 50, we have most of our momentum trending towards the upside. Do you guys see that? Right? So our 50 is usually what we would consider basically like the halfway point, right? When we're talking about things like sports, right? You have, your half court line in basketball, you have your 50-yard line in football, right? That's how we're going to be looking at the 50. So essentially, the person in possession or the people in possession is going to be predicated on where we're currently trading at. Okay? That's where we see most of our momentum. So as you can see, if we're trading below the 50, where do we see ourselves trending? Down, okay? Very simple. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay, so this is the 15-minute time frame. We want to make sure we see the same on the 30-minute time frame. All right? So we hit a pivotal low of 39.25. I think this was yesterday. Okay? So where are we currently trading? Above or below the 50? Above, right? Okay, so that would mean again, we would potentially be looking for entries for calls, okay? Entries for calls. Now, here's where things change. When we hit a pivotal key level, right? So if we hit a supply zone, this level I see right here is 40.20. If we were to hit 40.20, right? That would potentially mean that we have sellers in that area, okay? So we would be cautious as to take calls once we get there. This would potentially be our area of taking profit, okay? So if we were to have enter into a trade into calls close to the 50, right? We would then attempt to sell our contracts or take profit on those calls right around that area, right? Because that's where we would potentially see some downside pressure. Okay? Does that make sense? All right, so we're looking up here. This was about 2 weeks ago, okay? We hit a high of 41.68. And what happened once we got below the below the 50? Where are we heading? Down, okay? So again, when we're looking for confirmation on our trades, especially when we're looking pre-market, we want to see what the momentum looks like currently, okay? We want to look at our supply zones, but we also want to make sure that we are trading into momentum, okay? As you can see here, most of this is just sideways action. There's really no momentum, right? But then when we do get well below it, we start to see again falling to the downside. So here's what's pivotal about today. Okay, today was yesterday really, we were able to break over above the 50 on multiple larger time frames. Okay, so if we look at, like I said, the 15, we're above it on the 15. We're above it above on the 30, right? 30 minute. You guys see me. You guys see me changing the time frame, right? We're above it on the 1 hour. Okay. We're above it on 2 hour. Okay. We're here above it on the 2 hour, and then here's the pivotal piece here. We are not yet fully and firmly above it as far as opening on the 4 hour until we can see what happens during market open. Okay. But as we can see now, we did, however, actually open above the 50, but we haven't yet actually entered into the trading day just yet. So we need to make sure that we stay above the 50 throughout the trading day to continue to confirm our calls to the upside. Now, on the day, we want to make sure that we are always looking at the 5 minute chart. Okay, when we're looking to make decisions in the market, always have the 5 minute chart up because that's where we're going to be seeing more of our patterns forming, some of our trend lines breaking. We want to make sure that we get that confirmation on the 5 minute chart more so than the 1 minute chart or anything lower than that. Okay. So on the 5 minute chart, are we above or below the 50 right now? All right. So because we're above it, that's giving us um, some indication that we're going to be at call side today. However, we do have, like I said, a supply zone here or area of resistance around 40.20. Okay, so we want to make sure that we keep that in mind. All right. Does everybody have their charts up on their computers? All right, so we have about 5 minutes to go. Does anybody see any potential patterns or key levels that they want to share with anybody? And then explain how you got that. Does anybody have anything? Upside down H. All right, where do you see that? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Right. Right. So we could see the pattern a little bit clearer on a larger time frame. Okay. So Daneska is referring to the H pattern, right? But when we're looking at calls, the H pattern is actually inverse. Okay. So um, we could clearly see here that this would be the stem for the H, right? And then here's the curve. And so what we're expecting essentially is to go further to the upside. That would be the pattern for the H, okay? Now, obviously, we can see the regular H pattern, right? We could see the H right here, right? The stem for the H and then curve and going down. Essentially, what we're seeing on this side is the reverse of that, the inverse of that. You guys understand that? Which would mean that it should go up because if we have a regular H, right? You guys see the letter H here. If we have this regular H, then it's usually for downside, right? So if it's inverse, that would mean we would be looking for upside. So we have about 3 minutes left before the market opens. Make sure you're on your 5 minute chart. Now we do have a gap fill. So By the time the market opens, we're going to see a gap just like you see this gap here. So we should have a similar gap fill to the upside. So let's see what we get. So we haven't seen it yet because the market hasn't opened, but once it does, we're gonna see ourselves trading like above, like right around here, right? So obviously we ended here, but then we would be opening like all the way up here. So when we do have a gap fill, there is potential for us to close the gap before going back up. Okay. So even though we are looking at calls, what we're gonna want to make sure that we keep into perspective is we may have some sort of pullback towards the like once we open to close the gap before we end up going back to the upside. Okay, does that make sense? Because so SPX doesn't trade during pre-market, right? So right now this is the data as of yesterday. Okay, but because we're in futures, we can already see that it already gapped up. You see what I'm saying? So once you're gonna see the gap up once we open here in about a minute. Okay. All right, we got 30 seconds. All right. I think we're going to be coming down to about 4,000 before it ends up gapping back up. So let's see what happens here. As we can see, we do see downside pressure as predicted. While we're waiting, we could look at the gap. We see this gap here now. You see that? Okay. Yep. As predicted, we are coming down. This is what we call cooling off. Okay. We've had a lot of upside pressure pre-market. So what's happening right now? People are taking profits. There's people that potentially purchase contracts or shares or whatever equities they got potentially down here and waited until we got closer up here to sell. Okay, so that's what's happening right now. However, where does it look like it looks like it's trying to stay above the 50, right? So let's make sure we keep that in mind. If we see a long wick or what would look like a stem, okay, but in trading we call it a wick. If we see a long wick, that would lend us to believe we're going to the upside, then that would be further confirmation that we would be getting calls. Okay, so as we can see, this wick right here is getting longer to the upside. Let's see if it stays that way. It's very important, even as you're dissecting your setups, that you're also paying attention to the candlesticks as well, because the candlesticks also have stories to tell. Okay. Let's see what happens here. We have about 2.5 more minutes until we get our next 5 minute candle. As of right now, it's still downside pressure, but we are holding the 50 on the 5 minute chart. Okay, so we are still bullish. Okay. It doesn't look like seller or buyers are willing to see this go significantly below 4,000. Let's see if it still holds. We're just waiting for things to come to us at this point, guys. Still more selling pressure. See, here's the thing. If we don't have this type of indicator here, then if we get into a situation where it starts reversing against us, we have literally no idea what's occurring, right? But look at the last time we were able to touch the 50. What happened? It went right back up, okay? This is why it's important to get information, to get knowledge, because someone that doesn't have this line here, if I were to just take this off, we would have no idea what's going on, right? But because we have it here, it's this we still understand what story is going on. Okay. Every candlestick has a story, every setup is gonna have a story. So you want to make sure that each time you're getting into a play, you understand what's supposed to happen if it's to go your way, and what's also supposed to happen if it's to not go your way. Okay. Those two things are very important to know, right? Like if you're wrong, you want to know why you're wrong, right? So that you don't make the same mistake the next time. Okay. But before you get there, you want to see what potential ways you could potentially lose on this trade. Okay. If I were to get into a put on this trade, I know I'm losing if I don't see any candles open below the 50. Okay. That's how I know I would lose this trade if I were to get puts to the downside. Right. We need to know that so that if we do go to the downside, right, and we're getting calls, then we get out the trade. Simple as that, right? That allows us to minimize our losses while also maximizing our gains. Okay? So you want to know all outcomes, potential outcomes, I guess you could say. Hmm. Down. Yeah. 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 And here's the thing, some of the indicators are lagging, right? Some indicators are lagging. So, you know, really the main indicator I would say that is not a lagging indicator is price action. But things like MACD, RSI, they're not live indicators, right? So you have to be very careful when using them to make um, scalping decisions, I would say. Okay. And I wouldn't necessarily look at every time we touch this purple line, what keeps happening? We keep popping back up. We haven't yet seen anything below 39.99, right? Have we? I don't think we have. Okay. We have 3 more minutes until the next candle, but it looks like we're finally getting buyers to come up here. I'm gonna also add the 21 moving average. For the most part, that'll probably be a good idea to call it a trend line per se. Yeah. Sometimes it could behave as one, right? Let me change this color actually. All right, so it looks like buyers are finally stepping in. Let's see if we can get continuation. I would like to see us open above this candle here for confirmation, above the 50. Or sorry, this is the 9, above the 9. Now, something cool you can actually do in Thinkorswim is you can actually create alerts. Okay. So, for instance, if I want to be alerted if we were to cross above this price level, I could actually just go ahead. I'm going to delete this. I could go ahead and create the price level, right click on it, go to create alert, single alert, and then put the parameters I want, right? So, for instance, I want to see us go above this level to get calls, right? So it's saying ES, make sure that the price is at or above that level, okay? And then I could decide where it can notify me. I could have it sent to my phone, okay? And this will be a text message if it's sent to your phone. So you could send it as text and also as a notification on your. Josh, I need my charger. Um, as a notification on your Thinkorswim app. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and create it there. So you would create the price level. So let's say we create it here, right? Create the price level. Right click it. Go down to create alert, and then single, and then that's where you'd see it. You said what? Um. So you would select this here where it says notify with, and then yeah. Now the app should also give you ability to put your phone number in as well, so that you can get the text messages. All right. Again, we are still above the 50. So let's see what we get here. Now, another thing I like looking at as far as candle formations, okay, where are we opening, right? If I were to say we have a higher low, okay, what does that mean? That means that this candle had its own low, and then the following candle's low was higher than the previous candle, okay? That would mean when we talk about higher lows or lower lows, that gives us an indication of where the momentum is, okay? So this candle having its low right here, right? This candle's low is higher than the previous candle's low, okay? So that would be called a higher low, okay? Now, when we have a higher low, that usually means that we're going higher, okay? If we have a lower low, that usually means that we're going lower, all right? So as we can see, because we didn't break below, it's looking like we're continuing to have buyers step in to get to the upside. However, we need to be able to have more buyers come in the next candle so that we could have buyer side confirmed. Now, it looks like we're breaking above. This is where I would like to start scaling into calls. Okay. I would want to scale into calls right here. Now, again, when we're talking about scaling in, we're not looking at putting in our entire position size. What we're saying is it's essentially a tester in the market. Okay, we want to get a feel for what's essentially going on. Now, if it goes against us while we're still waiting for more confirmation, then obviously our losses are minimal at that point, right? But if we load up our entire position size to start our position and then it starts going against us, that's how you end up losing a lot of money. So we don't want to do that, okay? Does that make sense? Again, we're getting more pressure to the upside. However, I want to see us open above this blue line, okay? This blue line being the 9, all right? I want to see us open above it. Let's see. We have 2 more minutes left in this green candle. Now, one thing we want to make sure that we're aware of is the 9-day moving average. Okay, we're going to need to open either above the 9 or below the 50 to figure out which way we're going on this trade. All right, if we go below the 50, then that means it's going to be going downside. If we open above the 9, then that means we're going to call side. Okay. Definitely make sure you have these indicators on your chart to make these decisions. All right, let's see. For me, this is also a good place to enter this area right here. Into calls, yeah.
I would actually see like the top half of the move like exactly before on that chart actually. Can you guys see it? So I actually have my trend line drawn, and you know my rule about trend lines when I enter is what? When one candle opens what? Above it, exactly. So really, that's what I'm waiting for right now. Like we peaked above it, but we didn't close above it. So on the smaller time frame, let's say on the 2 minute chart, I'm literally waiting for a candle to open above that, and then I'll be targeting 40-20 that he has above, or maybe even 40-15. So this will be probably where I'll be looking to enter when the contractor starts scaling in. And look at that push. You see, it's like magic, right? When you wait for that confirmation, when you wait for that candle to open up, it kind of gives you an idea like, okay, this move might be confirmed. And then if you wait below it, then your stop is minimal at that point. So I'm getting it a little bit late now, so I feel like I'm chasing. But look at this push that we're having now.
Yeah, this push is a good push here. Now, we just broke our trend line to the upside. Okay? This is a trend line break to the upside.
And now we're over the 90 MA as well, too.
Yep. Now, what we're looking for here is some continuation, especially if we can get above 40.06.
And there goes the push.
All right, so I just got the alert. You see that? You guys see that alert?
I hope you guys are not
What's this?
There may be not taking profits, not just getting it down. And look at that push up, guys. This is what I look for. When you have that trend line, I told you guys yesterday. This is what I told you guys to practice these bear flags, these bull flags. This is when I see it. This is what I call my money setup. Right now, I'm putting stops in.
This is the easiest money you can make in the stock market.
Easy money, guys.
This is the easiest money you
I
can make
just
in the
took
stock
profit
market.
on this trade just now. I just put the stop, right? I waited for a candle to open above that trend, and we're still pushing up.
We're still pushing up. Right?
We're still going up. You see how that trade kind of fell into your lap and you have to force it? We need what we're looking for. A candle opens above the trend line. That's your entry to the trade. And you get this push up on SPX. That's a $300 candle.
All right, guys.
Right? And I'm taking profits, and we're about to touch high.
Yep, that's it.
Yeah, I took profits, guys.
Profits.
I got out.
All right, now let's see where we start heading.
You know, you guys things make me so nervous.
All right, guys, that was a quick hit. We ended up with 700.
346.
346.
20-minute workday. Right? When you wait for yourself and you're patient, guys, the market will reward you. I wish it was like this yesterday, right? You didn't do this yesterday, right? When you are patient, you wait for your setups, you wait for exactly what you're looking for. That candle to open above the trend line, I don't get nervous. When it pulls back, I just add more sign because I know what I'm looking for in this particular setup.
Guys, we played this to a T. I hope everybody is paying attention to what is being said here, okay? We saw the squeeze here on this triangle, and we stayed above the 50. Before we knew it, we got a nice pop to the upside, all right?
And we're still pushing.
And we're still pushing up. Now, the true area of taking profit is right here, right? Now, why would we be taking profit up here? Why would this be an area to take profit?
That's high as
Say that again, Dineska. Because that was the high of day, okay? So it's essentially to say the last time we got to this level, we had downside. So we need to make sure that we're aware of that when we're making that decision. So if it hits this level, right? If it hits this level and then it starts going down, we know exactly why it's going down, right? Right? Like what we need to make sure that we stay focused on whenever we're in the markets is we need to understand what's happening potentially at all times. That doesn't mean that we can, without a shadow of a doubt, know what's going on, but we can have an idea as to what's happening, right? The idea for us to be seeing that we have a little bit of turbulence right here, what would the idea be? Because we're close to where because we're close to the last highest candlestick, right? So we're not confused as to why it's going down right here. Okay? Neither should we be confused that it went to the upside because we saw exactly what's been happening. Guys, this is just a history lesson. Each time we were trading around the 50, there was an interaction to go upwards. Okay? All we're doing is we're seeing history repeat itself. Okay? Until we see otherwise, right? Until we see this go down below the 50, we have um, we have a lot of confidence to say that it should still be going up, right? All right, we're about to get another level up here. I think that 700 is good for the day. I think I'm done. Yeah, I think I'm done. All right, we're getting a little bit of turbulence, right? Lynn, why are we having turbulence here? Exactly. Well, this high is from pre-market, but yeah, exactly. Yeah, the high from exactly. That's exactly why it's struggling right here. Now, if it gets past this area, I think 4020 is almost certain, okay? If we can get above 4010, I think this level is 4020 should be at least eventually, okay? So let's see if it can do that. But guys, literally one move, all we need is one move. All we need is one area of certainty to be able to take advantage of, right? And that's it. Okay? That's it. It's yeah.
And then we just look for the next setup. That's it. How many contracts do you have, Bossy? 5?
I was in this trade for 1 minute. I was in this trade for 1 minute, right? 9:45 to 9:46. That's $700 in 1 minute, guys. Okay? 2 minutes. That's crazy. So I got five. I started out at five. Yeah. Now let's So another thing we can do is we can actually also analyze the trade itself. Okay.
Wow, we get another push up.
Yeah, that's oh man.
Guys, you notice we bounced right on the 90 MA just now. You guys saw that?
Yeah, we did.
We
Exactly.
bounced
Yeah,
right
we
on the
brought.
9.
Look at
And I
that,
missed that
guys.
trade.
Look, listen to what Josh just said. We bounced right off the
Right on
9
the 9
EMA
EMA.
on the 5 minute chart. This would have been another area of entry. Okay.
Fudge! I think what I'm trying to Okay, and now we're touching pre-market low. We're now
We're touching pre-market highs. Exactly.
And a 30-minute also on the RVR. So be careful here. Put your stops below in case we reject this. Okay, just in case we reject here, okay? We're next to pre-market highs right now. We're gonna just tag.
We should expect selling pressure right here, guys. So if you haven't taken profit, you should probably do so. That was a nice clean bounce too. That was a very clean
The
bounce.
first trade, it's fine. That's what I'm saying. Like, even when I miss a trade, I don't get back. So I know the market's gonna give me another opportunity, but I like to catch it early. I like to be done by a certain time. You know? Like, come on, it's not 53. It's just a hard day to work.
All right, guys. 4020 is coming. 4020 is coming.
Wow, we broke that high. Fudge! That was a nice clean bounce.
That was a very clean bounce. That bounced right off the 9 too. All right, guys. Let's do it. Let's do an experiment.
Look at this push.
Let's do an experiment. All right. Do we know anything that's going on right now? Do we know why it bounced off this? Do we know why it started at this level? Right? We don't. This is why it's important in all, I mean, I don't want to go too deep here, but this is why it's important in all areas of life to make sure you get information and the right information. Okay? Because this coming down right here, there was some selling pressure. Let's go to the 1 minute chart. And this is why I try to stay away from the 1 minute chart, okay? We didn't need the 1 minute chart just now to make our decisions, right? This 1 minute chart is potentially showing us that, okay, we got 3 straight red candles. Maybe we should get puts, right? Maybe we should just get puts here. Why don't we get puts here? Because there's an indicator that was showing us that if we still respect that, there's still room to the upside, right? So this is why we need to make sure that we have the right information to make those types of decisions, okay? Now, one thing I love about trend lines, though, however, is that we could clearly see that even, and like I said, the indicators are definitely necessary, but even while we don't have the indicator right here, we could see that this trend line, once we had the trend line break, right, it was to the upside, okay? I told you guys 4020 is coming. Who, me?
You still
Oh,
there?
no.
Set your stops. Y'all better buy me lunch today. I'm teaching y'all missing these moves. Oh my God, that was a beautiful bounce off the 9.
I told you 4020 is coming.
I know, right? Oh my goodness. You hit your stop, you're out? So guys, how much did you pay on that? 250. You're still in me? Are you dragging your stop up? Is that what you're doing? Yep. That's just keep dragging your stop up. That's when it hits you out. Oh, look at this push. I will take it.
It's a magnet, guys. It's a magnet. 4020 was coming, but that's where you should take your yeah. You gotta take your profit there because they're gonna take it right from you.
668. I definitely bought this. Hey, I'm actually salty on business food. I'm not gonna lie to you. said what? I shake and everything. I know, right? Nigga, like, my fingers are sweaty. Just keep dragging the top up. If it keeps giving you money, keep taking it.
Now, one thing I also want to talk about is the some of the things that maybe you guys have learned along the way, obviously prior to being here. One thing to make sure of is that you always look at the news, right? Make sure that you see, is there any reports coming out, right? Anybody saying anything, especially the the feds, right? But for what it's worth, it's not necessary for you to look up all different companies and right. I mean, how many links of Tesla or Apple did we pull up just now, right? None, right? We sat here, we talked briefly about what we're seeing in the market. We had a game plan. We knew the setup we were looking for, and all we did is just take action, right? We didn't hesitate either. Okay. As soon as you saw that alert go off, things started happening. Okay. So we need to make sure that we just have the right understanding when we're getting into the markets every morning. Okay. Look for specific setups potentially. Try to get an understanding of what the momentum would look like. Okay. There was not a single moment that we would have traded puts here. Okay. Um, there was never entry to get a put. Okay. Well, yeah, right. Like obviously, if you intend to lose money, then maybe okay. But there was no reason to grab a put today, at least yet. Okay, because of everything that we spoke about prior to the market opening. So that's how you can see how pivotal it is to have that plan before entering the market, right? Because if you just wake up and you just say, I just want to trade today, and then you open up the market and then you're trading and you haven't looked at anything just yet, then you might not have any sort of idea as far as what the momentum would be, right? So once you start seeing a little bit of red, all you start thinking is, all right, I'm about to go get calls. I mean, sorry, puts, right? But then what happens? You lose your money immediately because there was literally no reason to think that we were going to be going towards the downside. Like I said, at least just yet, okay, based on what we talked about. So make sure every time you're about to get into the markets, you have a specific idea. And again, when you're getting into a play, also make sure you have an idea as far as where you're going to be taking profit, okay? You guys saw, we were in that trade for literally a minute, okay? We were in that trade. This is some good downside right here. But if we don't, if it holds the 9, it's gonna go right back up. Okay. This is our 9-day moving average. It's gonna go right back up. Right. PMI numbers came out positive. They came out positive. Okay.
What's PMI numbers? Oh, the mortgage insurance numbers.
This was yeah, just 10. Non-manufacturing Purchasing Managers Index. So it's a report on business, calculating overall economic conditions. So it came out positive, so there's a chance we could continue to go up because it beat the expectation. All right, now we have information, right? What we do with that information is very key, but what we need to make sure we have an understanding of as far as the priority, as far as the information, is what we're actually seeing on the chart. Okay, I've had countless times where I've had information of positive news pertaining to either a stock or just the whole market in general, and literally watch everything come crashing down. Right now, what's the reason for it? There's potentially vast reasons for it. Okay, the information that came out may have come at a specific level where there was time for people to take profits. Okay, so literally the market can come down for any reason, right? And it can go any direction based off of any news. So when you have the information of the news, you keep it kind of like secondary, and then you let the market. Because look at what's happening right now. We just got positive news, right? And we're seeing the market come down, right? This is very pivotal. Like we need to make sure that we're consistently looking at the market because the market is always going to tell us the story more than the news will. Okay, In fact, sometimes there's news that drops that actually is there to essentially fake you out. Okay? Because here's another thing that might potentially happen here. We have this huge sell off that's occurring right here, but guess what? We might not even break the 50, our 50 right here, okay? Even with all this selling news. So, what can potentially be happening in this candle is there's news that comes out, everybody's buying calls. Because they're buying calls, the big fish are potentially buying puts. Now they're taking everybody's money. Nobody got money no more. Now what then happens? Those big fish take the money and go and buy calls because they take it right back to the upside. I wouldn't be surprised if this whole entire candle gets taken over by green on the very next candle. I would not be surprised. Specifically because I've seen this before. Okay? So we want to make sure that we're always sober minded when we're getting into the market. And what I mean by that is we're not we're not taking news at face value, right? We're not taking potentially even what we're currently in, because sometimes if you're already in a call, then you're biased at that point. You're saying, well, you know, this is supposed to go up because I'm in it, not knowing that you can't just draw candlesticks on your chart, right? Like I can't just draw a candlestick on my chart. You can't just do that, okay? But that's good what you said about being sober minded, like not going by what you hear, but like going by what's right in front of you. Yeah, absolutely. Like you got to go specifically by that. And now look at it, right? It's going back up. And what did it respect here? It respected our trend line and it respected the 50. So these are all things you want to make sure that you stay aware of, because a lot of new traders without that understanding, all they're going to do is just watch the news and try to dissect the news as to what it means, and then they'll try to make decisions based off that, and then end up losing money, and then say the stock market is a scam, right? I mean, for real, have we not heard these things? But then that's all you heard, yeah. That's all you're gonna hear because they're trying to dissuade you from doing something that potentially would better your life. You guys just saw $700 being made in literally a minute. Okay. Obviously, it could have been more, but I mean, $700 in a minute is not a bad day. Okay. It's not a bad day. All right. So we're still seeing some downside here, but again, I would be wary to grab puts anywhere here until we get below the 50. Okay? The reason as to why I say that is because the 50 actually comes with momentum, right? If we want our play to have some sort of like elongated move, we're going to want to make sure we have momentum back behind it. Okay? The reason as to why we got so much volume up here is because it's so much tension going on at that 50 once we get close to it. Okay? There's so much tension that by the time we end up touching it too many times, it just explodes to the upside. Okay? So, although we have a lot of downside pressure here because of, the news or what have you, it would be a little difficult to try to find entry here. See, as we're seeing here, it's still going to the downside. But it's hard to find entry because then if you don't know where you're entering, you also won't know where to exit. So you never want to make a decision just simply based off of, just okay, it's going down, so I'm just gonna buy it, right? No, that's not why we're getting into a trade, right? That's not the purpose as to why we're getting into it. We have to have a specific setup, okay? Because when we do have a setup, then we also have an idea of where we need to sell. Again, the setup here was to say all we need to do is break this trend line to the upside for us to get calls earlier, right? Once we got that confirmation, because we entered in at the right time, it also allows me to exit at the right time. Okay? So when I say I want to exit, I'm now looking at this area to say it should at least reach this area once we break the trend line right here. Okay? Because that's essentially what a bull flag is. Okay? It ends up at least touching the top here. So by the time it does that, that's our area to take profit. Okay? Now, imagine if we just said, oh, it's going up, and we entered right here. How much more space do we have to make the right decision? Because at this point, we don't even know where our take profit is, except for 40/20 up here, right? Which we didn't even touch just yet. So again, it's important to get precision in entry because then it allows you to actually exhibit patience when you're exiting a trade. Okay, you guys heard Dineska getting into a play and heard how long she was in it. She didn't see red on that play for a second, right? Imagine buying an investment and never seeing it go back. That's what happens when you decide to get into a trade at the right time, right? And again, it also allows you to get out of it at the right time as well. So it looks like we're holding up the 50, and it's look like it's trying to get above it. What we want to see right here, if we are still call bias, is to open and remain above the 50 here in this next candle within the next minute or so. Does anybody have any questions? Good, good.
Oh,
Yeah.
I came in a little late, right? What's the significance of the 50 that they moving at?
Yeah, so how I explained it earlier, and the analogy I gave is essentially the halfway point, right? It's like, what's your favorite sport?
Football.
Football. It's basically like the 50-yard line, okay? So obviously, whoever is on their territory on the 50-yard line, they're the ones that have the momentum potentially, right? Especially if you're talking about, you know what I mean. So what that means is, if this is our 50-yard line, we're saying that if we're above it, then that means we're on the call side, okay? Which means we would potentially be going up, okay? That would be our bias per se. If we're below the 50, then our momentum is more so towards the put side, which would be going below. Okay, so as we've been seeing here, and there's a lot of good examples on the larger time frame, right? Um, Let me go to the 1 hour. So as you can see, our 50 is this blue line here. Okay, so we were trading below the 50. So where was the momentum going? It was going bearish. It was going down. Okay, because we're below the 50. But as you can see, we started trending up yesterday above the 50. So where's our bias then? It's going up. Okay, does that make sense? Does everybody understand that? The reason why we look for these types of things is so that we could make quicker decisions, right? And so that we can also make informed decisions.
So is it certain strategies that determine which EMA you use?
No. The EMAs all work together, right? So if we're looking at scalping, again, our bias would always be to go calls if we're above the 50, right? On the 5 minute chart. Um, and and if it's above the 50 on the 5 minute chart, then it's gonna be above it on most of the other time frames as well. Okay. Um, Sorry, no, I said that wrong. If it's above it on a larger time frame, then it's going to be above it on all the smaller ones, right? So, for instance, the 2 hour time frame, it's above it here, right? So, it would be above it on all the other time frames. And we checked that earlier, right? It's above it here, right? It's above. That's the 1 hour. This is the 30 minute, right? Still above it. 15, right? Still above it, and then the 5, right? So if it's above it on the larger time frames, it's going to be above it on the lower time frames. So that would be where you would, make those decisions. All right, where did we get the bounce off of to get this upside? Where did it bounce off of? The 50. Okay, it is. It actually is. So now, if we are to believe that we're going to go and continue to the upside, at least within this move, we would have to open above the nine, right? The nine being this light blue one. Okay. Yeah. Granted, you could change the colors to whatever you wanted to, but knowing that the nine is going to be closer to the price action, okay, and then the 50 is going to be, I guess, the inverse of that. Um, So that's how you could usually know like which one's which. Okay, but you could change the colors however you desire. And we went over that a little earlier. All right, guys. Now here's what we're also seeing. What do we see right here forming? What do these two areas show? Double bottoms. Double bottoms. Okay. Now Josh showed you guys double bottoms yesterday, right? What usually happens when we see a double bottom? It goes up. It goes up. Double bottoms go up. Double tops go down.
But I think double bottom means that it's reached the bottom, so that's when
Right.
the double top reaches the top, so it goes down.
Yeah.
Oh, look at this razor.
Yeah. Yeah. Guys, if all you knew was to buy calls at the 50, you've had two opportunities to make money today. Okay? Once we touch the 50 here, we have click. This is a nice candle. Once we touch the 50 here, we search to the upside. Now, guys, this is the sweet part about this, right? I want everybody to hear this. This is the sweet part about knowing your EMAs. Okay, if you were to get calls right here, how much money are you losing if it were to go to the other direction, right? Because especially if you got in right at that entry, if you got it right when it touched the 50, right? If it did when it did go a little down, how much money are you actually losing there, right? That's the whole idea of being a sniper. Okay, let me tell you what a sniper does, and you guys are all snipers, right? Is everybody a sniper? All right, so this I was just wondering. I was just wondering. All right, so here's the idea of what an option sniper does. An option sniper looks for precision and entry, right? Because an option sniper is aware that they would not like hypertension, right? Does anybody want hypertension? No. Does anybody like high blood pressure? No. Okay. So if we almost are never losing during a trade, how does that impact our confidence when we enter into the markets every day? Right? If you were to simply say, I'm going to buy at the 50 and almost never see red on this play, how does that impact your like this is today's Friday, right? So that's what it means to be an option sniper, getting into the trade at the right time, because if you don't have to deal with those emotions of, man, I'm losing, I don't know what to do, I'm not making the right decision. If you never have to experience that, what does that do for you? You know what I'm saying? That's a good day. That's a good day.
You must have scouted it. I did. I know you scouted it. Okay, forget lunch. We're going to the golf course today. That's the thing, you never know the business. Yeah. Yeah, just hit vibes.
All right, guys. How does everybody feel?
Great.
Great. All right, guys. Listen. Here's the deal. What is obviously there's obviously some of us made money today. Some of us are still learning. This is what I want to make sure we are also aware of. Okay. What's more important than the money you make is the knowledge of knowing how to make it. Okay. Because when you have the knowledge, it at least is then repeatable. Okay. Like the $700 made today is good. It can do some great things, right? But what's more important than that is the ability to do that every single day. Okay? So while you're learning, you want to make sure that you keep that into perspective because obviously as an options trader, you're actually getting paid to learn on the job, right? But even when you're experiencing different setbacks potentially, maybe there's a day you take a minimal loss, you have to make sure that you learn that loss. Okay? Learn that loss. Understand why you took that L so that the next day you can be better and become a better trader. Okay? Learn that loss so that you can take the lesson from it and and leverage that. Okay? All right. So again, we're still above the 50. Obviously, this is an area of interest. This 420, right? We're still having turbulence here, right? Why are we having turbulence here at 420? Does anybody know? That is a supply zone. Okay. Dineska was absolutely right. Do we see this? Do we see this inverse H now? Right? It fully formed. Okay. That was a great eye. I didn't even see that. That is true. That is true. All right. Um guys, if this is me, I would have closed my laptop at at 9:50. Honestly, I would have been to turn on my laptop. But let's take some questions. Or Josh, do you have anything you wanna go over? Now that I think we're good on the trading day. Honestly, um, you have anything you want to go over?
I want to watch the market for like 10 more
You
minutes.
want to keep looking at it? All right. Well, we have 10 more minutes for the.
Nah, I'm seeing it. I wish I could.
All right, I want to also make sure that you guys all have your EMAs on your chart. Um, we actually have a video on how to do this. But does everybody already have the EMAs on your chart? Everybody have your EMAs on the chart? Yeah. You said what? I used the 950, and I just started using the 21 recently. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I got it on the right side.
What's up? Hmm. Yeah. As far as the 950, yeah, that's every day. That's every day, yeah. Yeah. Everything so that's a great question, Lynn. Everything we did just now, as soon as I sat down and started talking to you guys, that's exactly how I trade. every single day. Okay, like the whole analysis, looking at things, trying to see what setups and things like that. That's literally it. There's nothing I've left, to myself. Like that's me all on the floor. Okay, everything I just talked about, this is what I do, and this is every day. All right, so literally when you and this is actually being recorded right now. So when you guys, yeah, 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 yeah. When you guys get this recording, just watch it back, right, and then just apply it and repeat it every single day. Okay.
You said that cut that RBR. Yeah, I was waiting for that RBR right there, bro. I was like, you better come quick. 10 more minutes. Like, and that's what they do. 10 more minutes. Like, I'm just talking to you. I got you like this money. Let's go. All right, guys. So what's gonna happen is Sonya, did I say it right? So yeah, I'm sorry. It's gonna pull some of you guys waiting for testimonials one after the other, and then I'm gonna do some teaching, and I'm gonna break down some of the analysis from today as well. Okay.
Oh man.
Look at this push.
It's still pushing. All right, guys. So what formation are we seeing right here?
We did that, bro.
What formation? Say it again. RBR. Okay. This is a clear RBR to the upside. Okay. Clear as day.
That's that RBR, guys.
Yeah.
Right above. So I saw we came down, and I saw we based out around that.
Oh, that's a gap.
And we were struggling. I was like, okay, I took that trade, I scaled in, made a couple $100. Good trade.